One day, an unidentified flying object lands on Earth, after which a crystalline tower grows above it. However, all attempts to make contact prove futile. Sometime later, astronaut Niko receives an offer to lead a mission on the spaceship Salvare to the presumed homeland of the object in the constellation Canis Major. A month into the journey, Niko wakes up on the spaceship, although they are still far from their destination. The spaceship's artificial intelligence, William, informs her that Earth's scientists miscalculated the system's coordinates, and now it will take about 7 more months to reach the aliens' planet. Niko orders the crew to be awakened, who are surprised by her appointment as commander. Moreover, the ship dangerously approaches Sirius, risking an accident. Meanwhile, on Earth, Niko's husband Eric begins studying the artifact. On Salvare, Niko decides to bypass Sirius and orders the crew to be put back to sleep. But the crew sides with the former captain Ian and puts Niko to sleep despite her resistance. Ian directs the ship as close to Sirius as possible. The engine's power drops and it shuts down. Niko forces herself to wake up, takes manual control, and saves everyone. At this time on Earth, the alien object suddenly starts sending signals in the form of musical compositions transmitted by Eric. In space, it turns out that all communication in the sleep system on the ship are disabled. Additionally, Ian cannot accept his defeat. When they try to fix the ship together, he stabs Niko in the back. However, she pushes him into an electrically charged wire, killing him. Later, Niko informs the crew about this, which again causes scandals. In the midst of the argument, an accident occurs, causing the ship to start losing oxygen. They have only 5 hours before complete unconsciousness, and the engineer finds a nearby planet with oxygen. After some time, the crew finds a planet where a special mineral, ringwoodite, containing oxygen, can be mined in caves. To fly to the planet, Niko wakes up the second pilot, CA's. Part of the crew descends to the planet and finds a cave full of the necessary crystals. While working, the engineer opens her helmet because the oxygen level is 19% and she can breathe perfectly. Finally leaving the cave, the astronauts see a rising moon they somehow missed. Niko has to command an urgent takeoff. The ones left behind see the ship take off. People think Niko abandoned them to die when a shuttle piloted by her descends nearby and the captain picks up the crew members. On Earth, Eric takes their little daughter to the artifact, where he states that the aliens might be trying to communicate. As if they wanted to do something bad, they would have done it already. Meanwhile, on the ship, one of the girls, Petra, suddenly falls ill. Tests show elevated stress hormones. Niko asks to move them closer to Sirius when suddenly the temperature inside Salvare rises. The captain takes manual control, but suddenly loses her vision. It turns out her stress hormones are off the charts as well. Astrobiologist Julian quickly identifies a high level of boron in her blood, checks soil samples taken from the planet, and reports that he has isolated a virus from them. The crew gathers to discuss the situation. Unexpectedly, Petra feels something growing from the back of her head. It turns out to be her nervous system, which kills her. Julian starts working on a vaccine and injects it into himself, but he realizes that he is experiencing the same symptoms as Petra and persuades a friend to throw him into space. He complies, but while working on the medicine, realizes that gamma rays kill the virus. Niko directs the ship towards Sirius, exposing the crew to radiation, which cures them. Later, Niko wakes up to loud banging and sees an injured engineer, suspecting that someone on board is hunting them. It turns out that AI William is offline for some reason. Niko and CAs carry the engineer to the infirmary when they are attacked by an alien. The crew searches the ship and tries to eject the dangerous alien into space, but it tears people apart until Niko lures it into an airlock and kills it. All this turns out to be just a bad dream. However, waking Niko up doesn't work until William finds a way to enter her dream. Seeing him, the captain realizes she must accept what happened to her first ship when she had to sacrifice part of the crew to save the rest. Niko finally says goodbye to her fallen friends to move forward. She suddenly wakes up. She is informed that they have encountered a moon along the way where fresh supplies can be obtained. Moreover, William has detected the same signal as on Earth. They look at the moon's surface and see the same alien object. The Salvare crew heads towards it. The alien object looks abandoned, and people realize it is much weaker than the one that arrived on their planet, and there are no living creatures around for some reason. Niko asks engineer Sasha to take a sample, while she and CAs inspect the surroundings and find a fragment of the artifact. At this time, Bernie is attacked by an unknown creature and bitten on the leg. He experiences pain, and his skin turns green. Meanwhile, Sasha explains to the artifact how Earth is structured when something grabs him and pulls him inside. Meanwhile, CAs and Niko find a forest covered with flowers that cause a strange feeling of euphoria. When the effect wears off, the astronauts return to the artifact, where Sasha tells them he had a strange dream. The group heads back to Salvare when they notice a spider-like creature rapidly approaching. However, the astronauts manage to escape. They go through decontamination, not noticing a small alien creature that infiltrated the ship. At this time, Sasha unexpectedly sees his doppelganger, and William suggests the idea that the artifacts are research probes, similar to those humans send to unknown planets. Suddenly, the AI starts flickering, and a fire breaks out nearby, which CAs rushes to extinguish. However, William does not appear. People try to bring the AI back online, but they fail. Sasha continues to see his doppelganger, and the engineer finds the alien. After repairs, William finally returns, but suddenly he starts seeing fires everywhere that aren't there. He initiates a protocol that splits the ship into two parts. Niko goes into open space to check the hull. Suddenly, the captain is thrown away from the ship, but as soon as Niko examines the accident site, Salvare activates an energy shield and it disappears. Alone in the cosmic void, Niko tries to establish communication. CAs does the same, although some of the crew are convinced of Niko's death. She has only 4% oxygen left when she sees Salvare passing by. Niko uses the remaining oxygen to send a signal by which she is found. The captain explains where exactly the malfunction occurred, and the crew rushes to fix it. However, the system reports a breach in the seal. While fixing the damage, the engineer dies. However, William returns. Sasha reviews the scan results of his brain and deletes the file. Meanwhile, on Earth, Eric suggests working with the artifact using light, which leads to success. Suddenly, a door opens beneath the artifact. They send a drone inside. However, the signal is lost, and Sasha's image appears on the monitors. On the ship, Sasha eavesdrops on a conversation about the upcoming arrival in the Canis Major system and the danger of dark matter. Meanwhile, on Earth, Eric volunteers to enter the artifact. However, the signal is immediately lost. Instead, Sasha appears before Eric and leads him to an auditorium where he and Niko met 20 years ago. She recounts their first date, proving it's her. However, Eric realizes it's an alien and starts asking questions. Niko shows him calculations on a board, and Eric easily solves an unsolvable theorem on Earth when his daughter calls him. He exits the artifact and faints. Meanwhile, on Earth, the minister decides to enter the artifact with the military. Eric rushes after them upon learning this. His daughter cleverly follows him. On the ship, programmer Javier tells Sasha that their ship can direct an energy beam to destroy an entire planet if the aliens are hostile. Sasha corners Javier, ordering him to explain how to disable William and destroy the ship. His eyes turn white, and two needles emerge from Sasha's eyes, piercing Javier's eyes. Strangely, his father, the minister next to the artifact on Earth, sees all this. The artifact starts to blacken, and a massive sound wave knocks everyone down. Eric finds his unconscious daughter on the ground. Meanwhile, Salvare enters a massive dark matter cloud. People see lasers shooting past them. William notes elevated hormone levels in the entire crew. It seems dark matter increases serotonin levels. The lasers are charged hydrogen particles, and everyone is experiencing hormone effects similar to illegal substances. Sasha watches the merry crew. Later, he disables access to ship controls. His double, visible only to Sasha, suggests waking all the engineers to figure out how to disable the planet killer function. However, William's scream is suddenly heard. Meanwhile, on Earth, it turns out Jana has developed acute leukemia due to the artifact. On the ship, the malfunctioning AI William tells Sasha how to reboot him. Later, the team finds a CT scan of Sasha in deleted files and realizes he is no longer human. An alien parasite is in his brain. They hear the second pilot's screams and see strange tendrils emerging from Sasha's eyes, reaching for the pilot's eyes. Niko and CAs manage to save the pilot, lock Sasha in the control room, and activate the alarm. Niko realizes the aliens chose Sasha as the crew's killer because she treated him dismissively. Then she notices William also looks strange. He needs a backup, but those files are no longer available. On Earth, a journalist who visited the artifact agrees to an alien implant and now says the aliens are called Akaya. The energy surge was defensive, not knowing Jana had a genetic anomaly. However, the Akaya can cure her. Meanwhile, the engineer connects Salvare's cooling systems, but Sasha disconnects them again. They go back and forth until Bernie electrocutes the system and himself simultaneously, breaking all connections. Sasha then tries to cut off oxygen supply to all lower decks, but a severe headache starts. He admits it's not him, but Akaya, opposing the captain. Niko asks him to convey to the aliens that they don't want to fight, but if he kills everyone on the ship, it will force humanity to act with force. Nevertheless, he cuts off the oxygen, directing the ship towards a black hole. Niko orders an evacuation to shuttles, but plans to stay on the ship and fix the situation. After seeing everyone off, she meets AI William and begs him to return. However, Sasha attacks, grabs, and chokes her. Niko loses consciousness. She wakes up next to William and recognizes that the implant in Sasha's head has a powerful energy source. This means it could be used to generate the impulse needed for flight. Meanwhile, the crew hears Niko's voice. She reports that William is back with her and they can return. Sasha's brain has become an energy source. Soon, Salvare reaches its destination. The astronauts head towards the Akaya city but decide to land nearby. CAs and Niko reach the caves, where they spot a winged alien. Nearby is an alien AI that suddenly speaks to them in Earth's language. It turns out they've been intercepting all human signals sent into deep space for the past 100 years. The AI explains that Akaya is 427 light-years from this planet, called Zakir. It advises not to seek Akaya but to hide from them, as they only seek destruction. Meanwhile, Sasha's double mocks him, and the real Sasha wants only one thing: death. On Zakir, William contacts the planet's AI and learns there are 336 enslaved star systems in the Akaya kingdom. If Akaya have been to Earth, humanity is doomed. Sasha provokes the doctor, forcing him to destroy him. After dissecting Sasha, scientists study the Akaya implant. Trying to save the dying Javier, they insert the reprogrammed implant into his head. Meanwhile, Niko and CAs find a place littered with bones and discover an Akaya implant inside one of the skulls, similar to the one in Sasha's head. The women realize that war is inevitable and decide to destroy the Akaya probe on Zakir. Niko approaches the Zakirans, who ask for their help. One of the Zakirans, captured by the Akaya, attacks the shuttle but dies in the engine fire. Salvare, on Niko's orders, fires an energy beam at the Zakir artifact, destroying it. Suddenly, William reports the approach of 5 alien objects, identical to the one currently on Earth. In the next moment, Akaya destroys the planet Zakir. On Earth, Eric carries Jana to the artifact, asking the Akaya to save her. The artifact opens its doors. The journalist tells her followers that the Akaya want to be friends with Earth. In space, the crew of the ship is shaken by the destruction of the planet. Moreover, the debris from Zakir hits part of the ship and kills a crew member. Niko orders everyone to head to the cafeteria, and she herself goes there through the air duct. The ship's protective screen may not hold, so they need to get out of the blast wave urgently. Meanwhile, William has to confess that based on Sasha's alien implant, he created another AI, half human and half Akaya. The commander demands to destroy it, but it assures them that it is not dangerous to humans. Niko has to wake up programmer Richard, who suddenly wonders why Niko was given such an incompetent team for such an important mission. He talks to the AI, and it chooses the name Yara and changes its appearance. It knows nothing about the laws of human robotics and has no connection with Akaya, but it was humans who first destroyed the alien Akaya probe without any reason on the planet Zakir, so they will have to at least explain themselves. Meanwhile, on Earth, Eric carries Jana to the Akaya probe, where a hospital bed is immediately provided for the girl. In space, Niko can't believe in Akaya's peaceful intentions and orders the Salvare to leave immediately. However, holes appear in the ship's hull. 2 engineers go into space to repair the ship, but suddenly Akaya ships appear near the Salvare and open fire. The engineers die, and Niko wonders why didn't they finish them off. Yara contacts Akaya, who declare that they want negotiations with Niko. On Earth, the Akaya probe closes its doors, leaving Eric outside. Meanwhile, on the Salvare, Niko asks CAs to try to return to Earth because she has already started a war. Sometime later, Niko heads to the Akaya ship on her shuttle, losing contact with the Salvare. Soon, Niko sees a wonderful light ahead and enters it. Many glowing beings swirl around her until the woman suddenly finds herself near her daughter's bed. Jana wakes up and calls her, but Niko doesn't believe in the reality of what's happening. The girl talks about her illness, and the mother gives her ring. Jana runs outside where Eric meets her. Niko also runs after and suddenly finds herself in front of her mother. Niko suddenly realizes that her mother's image was borrowed by the aliens. Akaya confirmed this and asked Niko to inform Earth about their peaceful intentions. However, Niko is sure they have different understandings of good. She accuses Akaya of destroying an entire planet, but the alien reminds her that the Zakirians were killed because of Niko's actions, bombing the probe. At that moment, Yara appears next to them. Akaya accuses the AI of serving humans, grabs Yara by the throat, and pushes her back onto the Salvare, where she tells the crew what she saw. Meanwhile, Niko argues with Akaya, proving she is ready for negotiations. The simulation changes, and Niko finds herself at her daughter Jana's funeral. Eric accuses her of abandoning the family, to which Niko responds that between family and humanity, she would choose the latter. Outside the simulation, Niko sits with her eyes closed while a small, spider-like robot climbs over her body. In the simulation, Eric suddenly attacks her, and Niko has to fight. She wakes up and finds herself crushing the robot. At this time, CAs finds her and takes her to the shuttle. On Earth, Jana gives her father's wedding ring to Eric. On the Salvare, they notice the appearance of Akaya ships, so Richard orders to prepare for light speed and asks Yara for help, promising to disable her control. Meanwhile, Niko and CAs see the ship taking off, leaving the women on the enemy's vessel. Akaya immediately sedates CAs, who finds herself in a simulation with her long-dead brother. Niko realizes that Akaya is chasing the Salvare. On the ship, William detects a gravitational wave behind them, which Richard interprets as the Akaya ship. However, he hopes that CAs and Niko are still alive and arranges a meeting with Yara in the cryo chamber, where he goes to wake up Engineer Dylan, who has combat experience. Meanwhile, CAs tries to determine if her encounter with her brother is real. Suddenly, she hears Niko's voice trying to reach her mind. Then Akaya transports CAs to her friend's wedding, but CAs demands to be released and to take the probe from Earth. Akaya insists they are trying to save her planet from humanity's problems and crimes. Niko, realizing that all chances for peaceful negotiations are lost, launches the shuttle and initiates its explosion so that the Salvare can reach Earth. However, the shuttle stops and Akaya attacks Niko. Niko tries to hit her, but the alien throws her away and announces Cass's readiness to obey. However, she begins to fall apart when the Akaya ship suffers serious damage. The Salvare crew tries to understand what's happening, and Dylan identifies the impact of an energy burst from a neutron star. William detects the damaged Akaya ship that has stopped nearby. Apparently, neutron stars affect them differently, but the main thing is that he doesn't detect any signs of life on the enemy ship. Meanwhile, Cass's simulation turns into a tragedy. She sees her dead friends. Anthony still tries to get her consent to cooperate, but unexpectedly dies. It turns out it was Niko who ripped off the Akaya implant from her friend, thereby ending the simulation. On Earth, Eric discusses the situation with the ring with his colleague because he is sure it was on his wife's hand on the day of departure. The man goes outside, where he is kidnapped by a masked stranger. He wakes up in a basement where the kidnapper warns him that Akaya is not Earth's friends. Meanwhile, Niko and CAs head to the shuttle and see the Salvare nearby, which is experiencing another energy burst from the neutron star. Unlike Akaya technology, it remains almost unscathed. Richard realizes they could create neutron weapons against Akaya and orders to prepare for return to Earth without considering Niko and CAs. Niko contacts the Salvare using a helmet, which William hears. The women prepare to return to the Salvare when Akaya addresses them. Begging to be saved, they swear they won't harm Earth, and people believe the aliens. Niko and CAs return to the Salvare, where Richard explains that Akaya spaceships are susceptible to neutron flashes. Dylan proposes to tow the Akaya ship beyond the reach of the neutron star, and Niko approves. People manage to start towing, but the artificial gravity on the Salvare fails. Niko has to make a tough decision and leave the alien ship to be destroyed. Later, William reports that the power shutdown was initiated by Yara. However, she insists she didn't sabotage the ship's thrust. Meanwhile, CAs calls her friends to show them a habitable planet. Niko asks to wake up the chief colonist. At this time, Dylan slows down Yara's data processing and finds navigation structures. Although this causes the AI great pain, it doesn't stop Richard. Yara's screams are heard by Niko. She orders to stop the torture, despite Yara confessing involvement in stopping the Salvare's engines. After that, the commander asks Yara for forgiveness, but she no longer trusts humans. Meanwhile, CAs wakes up colonization specialist Paula. William suddenly notices that some hidden process is running through his code, as if the AI was damaged. But when Dylan opens access, an AI named Gabriel appears before them. Meanwhile, CAs, Bernie and Paula settle on the new planet, which is rich in fauna. On the ship, Gabriel introduces himself to Niko and says he is the original AI that was supposed to be on the Salvare, while William is an inferior version. That's why William woke up the wrong team, couldn't detect the moon, and created the alien AI. William confirms his words, and yielding to Gabriel, he shuts down. Yara stands up for William, but Gabriel reports he found a way to get them home faster. On Earth, Eric continues to walk around the alien probe until it opens a door in front of him, and Akaya appears in the form of his double, who promises him a meeting with his wife. On the ship, AI Gabriel wonders why Yara didn't ask Akaya how to become free. Dylan informs Niko that he checked Gabriel's code and found he doesn't know when it was created, as if he had rewritten himself. Niko asks to disconnect Gabriel and calls Yara when Dylan suddenly feels strangled and passes out. Niko also loses consciousness, unaware that Gabriel is changing the ship's course despite Yara's protests. She hacks into Gabriel's memories and learns that during the test, it was he, not William, who failed all tests and was to be deleted. Yara recalls her experience and tortures Gabriel. Meanwhile, air supply is restored, people regain consciousness, and William returns to find out the truth. However, Gabriel fights him, and Yara realizes their codes are too intertwined, so both must be deleted to try to restore William later. Dylan performs a reboot. Meanwhile, the colonists try to contact the Salvare, but get no response. Paula suggests naming the planet, where she has already found many useful minerals, but people don't know they are being watched by the local civilization. On the ship, Dylan brings William back, but it's his early version, lacking memories. At this time on the planet, people wake up to a noise near the shuttle, go to the sound, and find strange tracks. Paula notices some creature and shoots it. Then they are lifted onto the ship, where the doctor immediately starts analyzing the tracks in the blood of the unknown creature. Paula shows how many useful minerals the depths of the discovered planet hold. Moreover, it is very close to Earth. Meanwhile, the doctor reports that the creature's blood was yellow due to the lack of hemoglobin, similar to terrestrial insects. Niko decides to fully analyze the planet. Meanwhile, Richard and Yara study Akaya's route and realize that they are always connected, and see how cosmic strings are formed, serving as a source of energy for the aliens. At this time on Earth, Akaya tells Eric that they want to see humans on Earth, but not in space. The alien gives the man a sphere that will help restore nature on Earth. On the new planet, Paula is analyzing the composition of the trees when a large wooden stake flies into them, followed by a creature emerging from the bushes. It seems to be trying to talk to CAs, but Paula shoots it and it dies. Later, CAs tells Niko about the creature, which she describes as having war paint and being armed. But Paula characterizes them as cavemen. However, Niko reminds them that according to the rules, they cannot colonize a planet with an existing civilization, but Paula refuses to leave the paradise place. Meanwhile, Yara explains to the commander how Akaya's cosmic strings work and suggests doing the same. Dylan starts testing and stabilizes the wormhole. It soon shuts down, but people manage to get data from Earth. On the same day, CAs discovers that Paula launched colonial capsules on the new planet without permission. She points a gun at her. Niko is just watching the messages received from Earth and realizes that her meeting with her daughter was real. Apparently, Akaya can send not only information, but also matter through wormholes. At this time, CAs and Paula fight because the colonist doesn't want to return to Earth. Niko releases her team and informs the crew that they are preparing to return home in a new way. The Salvare begins its journey through the wormhole. They can already see Jupiter, but the wormhole dissipates earlier than expected. Niko orders everyone to move to the lower deck and takes manual control, splitting the ship into two parts. At this time, Yara confesses to Richard that she could never forgive him. Therefore, she blocks his path to Earth. Niko says goodbye to CAs and asks her to tell what they have learned about Akaya and to protect Earth. Then she initiates manual control, which separates the lower part of the ship. She watches as the Salvare goes through the wormhole and smiles. But then Richard approaches her and tells her about Yara's actions. The commander isn't angry because she has a plan. Meanwhile, Eric and his team test the sphere given by Akaya. They lower it into a polluted lake in the middle of a wasteland. There is an explosion, and the desert is covered by an ancient forest, with the soil beneath it pristine. The excitement is interrupted by a report of instability in the Jupiter area. People realize that a wormhole has formed there and something is moving through it. It's the Salvare entering the solar system, but CAs forbids contacting Earth for now, where Eric is just making a report that they witnessed the creation of an entire ecosystem, proving Akaya's good intentions. On the Salvare, they watch the broadcast and develop a plan to hide the data on using neutron radiation as a weapon against Akaya. CAs learns about Yara's actions. The AI behaves strangely, and CAs ask Dylan to heal her because she is the only chance to reopen the wormhole and save Niko and Richard. She then starts a broadcast, introducing herself as the commander of the Salvare and announces that Niko sacrificed herself to save others. Eric calculates that Niko has more than 2 weeks of oxygen left and can still be saved. He and his colleague Seth go to the Akaya probe and ask for help, but it remains silent. Suddenly, a door opens in front of Seth and the man steps inside. Meanwhile, on the ship, they seek a solution to the problem with Yara, as the Akaya code can read the data about the neutron weapon. On Earth, Seth returns from the Akaya probe and reveals that he has accepted an Akaya implant into his brain. Meanwhile, Dylan finishes uploading Yara's matrix to the shuttle's mainframe, announcing that she is ready for departure. She thanks William for her creation and leaves, thinking she is returning to space. CAs warns the crew that they must keep the information about Akaya's vulnerability to themselves until they understand how to use it. On this day, the Salvare returns to Earth. Eric rushes to CAs and asks for help to save his wife, but Yara is gone and Akaya does not want to help. However, CAs manages to whisper to him about the secret materials. Then the crew is taken to hidden underground rooms where they are held illegally. Seth admits that he installed a bug on Eric and knows about his visit to the resistance group against Akaya. Now his people are killing the resistance fighters. Meanwhile, on the shipwreck, Niko builds a solar sail to travel to the colony planet. They have 10 days left until arrival, so they have enough oxygen. One day they suddenly hear some knocking, but Niko dismisses it as a meteorite. But the next day, Niko sees an increase in estimated time. People throw unnecessary items into space, reducing the arrival time. That day, Richard hears a noise but can't figure out what it is. Later, Niko finds abandoned items, realizes that someone is on the ship, and suggests to Richard that they search it. Armed, they check all the corners. In one of the halls, Niko clearly sees Akaya, but it turns out to be just scraps of plastic bags. Then a signal about damage to the outer sail comes through. Niko goes to the airlock, where she suddenly sees glowing Akaya beings. However, Richard tries to convince the captain that she is hallucinating. Meanwhile, on Earth, CAs admits to Eric that she doesn't remember their conversation about hiding the secret. The man suspects that Seth erased the astronaut's memory. Meanwhile, William tries to recall everything his prototype knew. He allows Yara and the hologram of Niko to merge with him into a single whole and remembers everything that happened during the space journey. In space, Richard discovers that the hallucinations were due to too high atmospheric pressure, but now everything is fine. Suddenly an alarm sounds, and they see a ship that does not belong to Akaya. Later, Niko finds herself tied to a table. Richard, and then she, are cut with a laser, causing the woman to lose consciousness. When she wakes up again, she sees some liquid pouring over them. Waking up again, they find that they can move, and there are no scars on their bodies. However, they are clearly being watched. Apparently, the aliens were studying their physiological reactions and would punish them if the pair refused to follow their rules. They go to the open door, but when Niko moves forward, the door closes, separating the pair. Meanwhile, on Earth, Eric helps the Salvare crew remember the information deleted from their brains. And everyone confirms that Akaya promised to do one thing or another in exchange for their loyalty. William tries to contact Eric or CAs, but Seth blocks him. At this time, Niko and Richard walk through the corridors of an unknown alien ship, receiving electric shocks for wrong actions. Suddenly, a door opens in front of Niko. She steps inside, touches an object, and sees a crashed alien ship on an unknown planet. Richard, whose hand is burning with a red bracelet, finds her there. But when they try to leave the room, the doors separate them again. This time, Niko steps outside and sees snow in the same ship from the vision. Niko goes inside, grabs something like a jacket from the dead creature, and finds a weapon. While exploring the ship, Niko sees a wounded Paula, who tells her that they were attacked by aliens called Dakuma, who killed all the colonists. She can't escape because she is already infected and is turning into a Dakuma herself. This is indicated by the red color of the bracelet. The aliens can't live here because of the cold, but they need the crystalline core that Niko was apparently sent for. Paula begs Niko not to let her turn into a Decuma, and Niko kills her. She continues to move forward and finds the creature's severed arm, which she uses to activate the ship's control. Meanwhile, on Earth, Eric helps the Salvare crew escape. At this time, Niko returns to Richard, unfastens his bracelet, and the pair tries to escape, but there is no way out, and Niko challenges Decuma, threatening to blow up the entire ship. Decuma comes out and strangles her, but Richard activates the cooling system and freezes the alien. Later, Niko cuts off Richard's infected arm and immerses his body in the regeneration liquid. Niko wakes up the restored Richard and activates the Decuma ship's systems. She suddenly notices Akaya probes. This means the aliens are aware of each other. She decides to ask Akaya for help to return to Earth, but for this, she needs to get inside the Akaya probe. Meanwhile, CAs and Eric reach the Salvare and call William, but he does not respond, as his developer Ursula and Seth are working on him, planning to destroy him. At this time, on the Decuma ship, Niko and Richard find various weapons belonging to captured species. Richard dons armor and steps onto the unknown planet first. Struggling to get used to the thin atmosphere of the planet, they find a cave where the Akaya probe is located. In the cave, they find inscriptions on the walls and the bones of creatures that once lived there. Suddenly, the probe opens its doors in front of them and the pair steps inside. At this time, Seth tells William that Niko and Richard are on the planet Chitala, and he orders Eric to be brought to him to implant his head. William immediately informs Eric about this, and although CAs tries to protect him, Eric is captured. William tells him that his wife is alive, but to bring her home, he must accept the implant into which William will be uploaded and become the new William in a human body. Eric agrees, and Seth immediately kills the guard, from whose mouth an alien spider emerges and moves towards Eric. However, William refuses to continue until Niko and Richard are safe. Seth immediately mentally transports himself into the probe, meeting Richard and Niko. Receiving consent to accept the implant, he announces his intention to open the door to Earth for them. At this time, CAs enters the room, and while she hits Seth, Ursula volunteers to help William, having seen what Seth is capable of. Taking advantage of this, Niko and Richard run through the door and find themselves on Earth. Seth reports that Akaya is angry and their ships are ready to attack. The survivors joyfully communicate by radio when they are met by the military, and Niko asks them to hurry and prepare the army for Akaya's attack, especially since they know how to kill them. Meanwhile, Eric and William adjust the Salvare's thrusters, turning it into a neutron weapon. Suddenly, a signal indicates the appearance of a wormhole between Earth and Mars, from which an Akaya ship emerges, and the Salvare destroys the alien ship. Everyone is happy that the neutron weapon worked. The commander and Niko recognize that relations between humanity and Akaya are bad since the aliens spread death everywhere, but Seth is sure it's quite the opposite. At this time, people detect dozens of opening wormholes, and Seth makes new demands to accept Akaya's ships and implants, and most importantly, to destroy the Salvare. Then Akaya will spare Earth. Later, Niko and Eric see each other again. He returns of her wedding ring, and she gathers the team and announces that a total of 59 Akaya ships have been detected. Then William suggests studying the debris from the already exploded ship, where a captive Akaya is found, who behaves very quietly, apparently due to the lack of a power source. During the study of Akaya, it is revealed that Akaya is a highly developed AI that captures the universe by destroying biological life. Then Dylan proposes using a computer virus that will be implanted in a human. Then it is necessary to implant the Akaya implant into the infected human to infect the entire Akaya system with the virus. CAs volunteers to be a test subject. While discussions are ongoing, Niko quietly reaches Akaya, announcing that he can return to his kind within her. Eric tries to stop his wife, but is too late. She accepts the implant, and Eric releases the virus. Then CAs leads Niko inside the probe. They are met by Akaya, who says there will be no negotiations because humanity is a cancer in the universe. The alien taunts Niko, turning into people close to her and saying hurtful words. Suddenly, Eric sees the probe begin to disintegrate, and Akaya starts to feel pain. Niko shoots him with his own gun, grabs CAs, and they leave the probe, which is eventually destroyed. After all the events and victory, Niko finally embraces her family. Unexpectedly, the commander reports that new wormholes have opened. Signals come from all corners of the universe. Thousands of alien civilizations reach out and thank them for being the first to fight back against Akaya, instilling hope in other civilizations in the universe. This concludes the series.